Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. I guess I'm it today. So I think, first of all, it's great to, once again, that both sides of this dais share many of the same goals. I heard my colleagues say that they want an aggressive trade agenda to open up more free markets, so that's exciting to hear. And I would add with that, I assume they also want them to have fair and reciprocal trade agreements as well. So we're assuming that we share the same goal. Under President Trump, he gave us USMCA, he gave us South Korea, an improved Japanese trade agreement so important to American beef, and China Phase 1. Mr. Greer, what trade agreements were accomplished under Joe Biden?
Senator, I'm not aware of any.
Okay. I want to compare and contrast a little bit here more. Let's talk about Mexico. I think it's one of the simpler ones to understand. Again, thanks to President Trump's USMCA trade agreement, Mexico and Canada supplanted China as a #1 trade partner for Kansas agriculture, many of our materials as well. But under Joe Biden, Mexico undermined American farms, he harmed commerce, and he bullied U.S. companies. He shut down the GMO corn exports, forcing a huge dispute. Mexico hampered U.S. energy protection under Joe Biden, and Mexico seized a U.S. mining company's operation near Cozumel. What can you do, what can we do to reverse this behavior?
Well, Senator, before I answer that, I just have to point out that I do have one child that was born in Kansas. So
that's great to hear.
So,
and maybe had something to do with your time in the Air Force.
That's exactly right.
Well, you're an honorary Kansan. You can wear your Chiefs jersey. You can wear a Jayhawk jersey. Any of those things are applicable. Which one is it?
Well, I have it's
okay.
Sonora, and I have a Wichita State Shockers T-shirt that I wear occasionally. So with respect to your question, any trade agreement we have is only as valuable as the enforcement behind it.
Yeah.
And so my view is all these issues you talked about with Mexico, whether it be energy or corn, et cetera, we need to enforce that. I know that there's a case that was done on the corn issue. I'm going to enforce that. I know that there were consultations open on energy, and we're going to bring that up with the Mexicans as well. It's important. Listen, good fences make good neighbors. If we want to have good ongoing trade relations with folks, we have to hold them accountable.
That's right. Right. Let's talk about biofuels for a second. I've never seen such an uneven playing field for American biofuels. The U.S. is subject to 18% tariffs going into Brazil with biofuels, yet Brazil enjoys a virtually free access to the U.S. And in many cases, thanks to some scientific voodoo, they're actually giving Brazil a preference over American biofuels as well. The EU continues to be protectionist against U.S. ethanol. Chinese used cooking oil exports. You're familiar with how they're abusing that. You would think that if we're going to give tax credits, we would make sure they're not going to benefit foreign entities, especially those who wish to harm us. What can you do to help the biofuels industry and try to level that playing field?
Well, Senator, this is the specific kind of unfairness that drives me crazy, and it's not just me. The president himself, he sees these kinds of unfairnesses and the unlevel playing field, and it's so obvious, it's so blatant, and it's gone on for so long. Again, in the first instance, you can certainly go to somebody like the Brazilians and say you need to fix this, but it has to be followed up with or else, right? I mean, that's a little crude, but we need to have leverage, and if we need to gain leverage by taking investigatory actions or other actions, we'll do that. It'd be much better to do this on a negotiating basis. But we'll do whatever we need to do to try to fix this situation.
Great. Let's talk about China for a second. There's so many more things than just trade barriers or tariff barriers with them. There's many, many non-tariff barriers. I'm sure people have highlighted them when I was gone here. They're stealing seed genetics from us. They're blocking import and feed additive technologies and beef. They're blocking chicken exports from 42 states because of HPAI. They've committed to substantial ethanol purchase but never followed through. And I could go on. In contrast to the Biden administration, how can we build on President Trump's success under Phase 1 with China?
Well, we need to start by reviewing it and actually assessing whether or not the Chinese have complied with it or to what degree. In fact, the president has already directed the Office of the USTR to do this. And if you go to their website, there's like an announcement that says that they're in train doing this. So I think in the first instance, you have to have a very clear assessment because we don't just want to pound our fist and have rhetoric. We want to be able to very clearly see where they did or did not comply. And then from there, you move to dispute settlement and you move to enforcement if you need to. And again, hopefully this is an area where countries will understand the unfairness and change because they know that President Trump is serious about this, that I'm serious about this. And if they don't, then you move to that last part of enforcement.
Great, great. If I could just finish with this, as you all know, we have an almost $1 trillion trade deficit in this country. And as well as national security issues. And I appreciate President Trump, this drug war that we're having with Mexico and Canada and China over the fentanyl precursors especially. I greatly appreciate him prioritizing the security of our families, and if he has to use tariffs for that, I understand. I also believe that these tariffs will bring jobs back to America as well, and that's another way that we can use this. You know, one thing I would dispute, and we would disagree with this with my friends across the aisle, when they say that American consumers will pay for these tariffs. You know, under President Trump, he used tariffs, but we saw minimal inflation. So at the end of the day, those tariffs were not passed on to Americans in the big picture. I'm sure you could not find isolationists that you could do that, but to me, the big picture is, for one reason or another, those tariffs were used properly, and we were able to not pass that on to American consumers. Mr. Greer, is there a way to do that going forward as well, to effectively use these tariffs as a weapon, as a tool?
Yes, I agree 100% with that. What we learned from the first term is that President Trump and his economic team is very good at managing the economy. And we saw real median household income go up by $7,000 over 3 years before the pandemic hit. And this was at a time when we were imposing tariffs in a way we hadn't done in many years. And when we look at inflation under the Biden administration, that happened in 2022, it wasn't about tariffs. It was about healthcare and housing and food, things we don't import from China, right? So we know that we can manage this. We know we have a strong economic team. And if I'm confirmed, I expect to be able to take strong trade action while helping ensure that the economy is growing for average Americans.
Thank you so much, Mr. Greer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member. Thank you.
Thank you.